Krishna. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari Jai Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari Yashoda Yamuna Tera Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtodra Shatashi Shrimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 4, Sati quits her body, and we're on text 30. Which I heard is the first line is irregular. So ham drumasho hridayo brahmo. How does it go? So yam drumasho hridayo brahma drukcha. Loki prakirtim mahatim avapsyati Yirangajam swam purashadvit udditam na pratyashedam ritaya paradayataha. So yam drumasha hridayo brahma drukcha Loke prakritim mahatim avapsyati Yirangajam swam purashadvit udditam na pratyashedam ritaye paradata. So yam drumasha hridayo brahma drukcha Loke prakritim mahatim avapsyati Yad angajam swam purashadvid udditam Na pratyase danmritaye paradata. Want a fashion show? Not a fashion show? Come on, Dharmaraj, what happened? You don't chant shloka? You don't chant the Sanskrit? Okay. Damodar Kumar? I should have read a Prabhu could give a better explanation of what's going on.
I sent you an address. Do you think you could look up the directions for that address? Please?
Maybe you could just write them down. I mean, maybe you could look them up. Maybe you could look them up and write them down on that piece of paper of yours. Okay. Saha he ayam that dormasha hridaya hard-hearted brahmadruk unworthy to be a Brahmin cha and loke in the world aprikitim ill fame mahatim extensive vapsyati will gain yet angajam the daughter of whom swam own purushadvit the enemy of Lord Shiva Ujitam who was preparing na pratyashidat did not prevent mritaye for death aparadaha because of his offenses. Translation. Daksha, who is so hard-hearted that he is unworthy to be a Brahmin, will gain extensive ill fame because of his offenses to his daughter, because of not having prevented her death, and because of his great envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Daksha is described here as most hard-hearted and therefore unqualified to be a Brahmin. Brahmadruk is described by some commentators to mean Brahmabandhu, or friend of the Brahmins. A person who is born in a Brahmin family but has no Brahminical qualifications is called a Brahmabandhu. Brahmins are generally very soft-hearted and forbearing, because they have the power to control the senses and the mind. Daksha, however, was not forbearing, for the simple reason that his son-in-law, Lord Shiva, did not stand up to show him the formality of respect. He became so angry and hard-hearted that he tolerated even the death of his dearest daughter. Sati tried her best to mitigate the misunderstanding between the son-in-law and the father-in-law by coming to her father's house, even without an invitation, and at that time Daksha should have received her, forgetting all past misunderstandings. But he was so hard-hearted that he was unworthy to be called an Aryan or Brahmin. Thus his ill fame still continues. Daksha means expert, and he was given this name because of his ability to beget many hundreds and thousands of children. Who could do that, right, nowadays? Hundreds and thousands. Sometimes I was told, but I don't have experience, but I was told that there's these there's sometimes TV shows in which there's a mother and a father, and then the mother had 20 kids or something, and it's they have it on TV and it's a show, Yeah, like a reality show. Oh, she has 20 kids or something. But what to speak of hundreds and thousands? That's what Daksha was doing. Persons who are too sexually inclined and materialistic become so hard-hearted because of a slight loss of prestige that they can tolerate even the death of their children. Omigyanativarandasya karanchana shavakya chakshavamadhitam yanitasmai shri grave namaha mukam kariva chalam pangam nangate girim yap kripatam ham vande shri gurun diditaranam vancha kaptubishcha kripasunnivevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll read the translation again. Daksha, who is so hard-hearted that he is unworthy to be a Brahmin, will gain extensive ill fame because of his offenses to his daughter, because of not having prevented her death, and because of his great envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's hard without a stand. Podium. So the humans, as we know them, they're very complex, entities, very, in many ways, complicated, complex, a lot going on. Even within all of us, a lot is going on within our minds, and practically everybody's like that. And therefore, people, they feel, and practically speaking, everybody's confused. Everybody's confused in the material world. I just read a quote recently. Srila Prabhupada, he was with Hari Shari, and that was Prabhupada's servant, secretary. And there was some problems going on in the world. There was a drought. So many things were happening in the world. Negative, you could say, things were happening in the world. And Srila Prabhupada said, these people, they think they're under control. They think they're free. Because it was, apparently Prabhupada, it was a quote, Prabhupada was talking about Indian Independence Day. And people think, these people think they're free. They're free from the British Raj, whatever it is, control of the British government. But he said, what is their freedom? He said, they don't have any freedom. They're completely controlled by material nature. Death and disease and old age. And Prabhupada was mentioning the drought, how there's lack of water, right? So he said they're under control. And then Prabhupada made a statement which is very interesting. He said, practically there's not one person in the whole world who knows anything. That's what he said. There's not one person in the whole world who knows anything. Which is quite an interesting statement, because there's a lot of people in the world. I mean, even back then, however many there are, what now, 7 billion or something? Is it? How much? 7.5 billion. Okay. So back then, anyways, maybe someone could do the research. There was less, but still there was a lot of people back then, and Prabhupada said not one single person knows anything in this whole world. And then Hari Shari, he said, oh, but you, Prabhupada, you know something, you know a lot. And then Prabhupada said, oh, are you just trying to flatter me? Are you serious? And then Hari Shari said, no, I'm serious. And Prabhupada said, okay, So it means people are confused, they don't know what's going on with themselves, what's going on with the world. They're just bewildered, So within ourselves we may have conflicting, you could say, desires, conflicting emotions that sometimes confuse us. Just like, for example, I was speaking with this, I'll get back to that. But in relation to people being hard-hearted and not forgiving, recently I was talking with a devotee yesterday, actually, and I sometimes give this devotee burfis, sweets. I give him sweets so he could give them to his nephews, means his sister's sons, little boys, 3, 5 years old, whatever they are. They love sugar. Those little kids, just give them sugar and they'll be happy. That's a trick, actually. If you want to make a child happy, just give them sugar. My mother, what she does is she carries around a bunch of candies in her purse, and then when she's with the family or friends, she just gives them candy, and they all like her, oh, she's here. So he was giving her his sister's son's sweets, nephews. So then I brought him the burfis, and he said, "Oh no, that's okay. I don't need them." And I said, "Oh well, what about your nephews?" And he said, "Oh well, I had a little difficulty with my sister." I said, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And then we got in this whole conversation. And in brief, nowadays, especially at this particular point in time, somehow or other, there's been a very strong interest and focus on this idea of gender, gender identity. So in other words, if you're born a man, biologically, you should have the freedom to, think you're a woman, or be treated as a woman, or become a woman. And vice versa. A woman can become a man, and that's my choice. In other words, it's my choice. And it goes so far as he was saying, he said he studied for some months, he was saying that it goes so far as that they call it gender fluidity. What is it? Fluidity, yeah. That you wake up one day and you may be feeling like, hey, I want to be a woman today. I feel like being a woman. I feel like, instead, the classic, right? Blue and pink. Women usually wear pink and men usually wear blue, right? That's how they dress the babies when they're young. So you say, hey, well, today I feel like wearing hot pink, and I'm a woman, and I'm going to act like a woman, I'm going to talk like a woman, and walk, whatever. And then the next day you could, be a man. So, this devotee even said that it goes so far as sometimes people, they bring it to another level, that they want to be an animal. And, they may dress, like for example, they dress up as a horse, and then they go out into the field, and then they act like a horse, They do horse things, they run around, whatever, they eat grass. And they want to be treated as a horse. And I said, "Oh, really? Are you serious, or is this like a joke?" He said, "No, it's real. It's it's actually reality. People want to be dressed like a horse." I mean, people want to act like a horse, be treated as a horse. What do you think about that, Dhamraj? It's insane, huh? You think of it. So, but specifically, in relation to this gender, you want to, whatever, the men, for some reason it's a lot of men, but men want to be women. And they may make some changes or whatever. Try to become a woman. And then they want to be let into women's bathrooms, right? So this is going on quite a lot within America. And in some places, if a man wants to be treated like a woman, and if you don't treat him, or you don't treat the entity as a woman, then you could actually get punished legally, get a big fine. As far as this devotee was saying, you could be sued for $250,000 in New York City, New York. So, anyways, the point was that he was not into that idea at all. He was thinking, "Oh, this is incorrect. This is immoral, and this is just, what is this, right?" So, and he was apparently voicing that to his sister. And his sister held the other idea that, hey, what's the problem? Transgender, no problem, right? I mean, Prabhupada devotees brought this up to Prabhupada because I guess apparently one devotee wanted to, he was a man but he wanted to be a woman, but then he kept on going back and forth. So, or whether he kept on going back and forth, whatever. But the point is, Prabhupada said, okay, fine, but just pick one, pick identity, man or woman. So, whatever the case is, this particular, his sister just thought he was a, what's the word? Is it bigot? Is that the correct terminology? Well, she thought he was just a fanatic and, close-minded, old-fashioned bigot, just this guy's. So, and she said, so you hold that idea? So I don't want you associated with my sons, my nephews, your nephews. Why? Because in the course of your conversation, the fear that you have is going to come out and it's going to spoil my children. So I don't want you associated with my sons, your nephews. So you're cut off, practically speaking. And she said something about, I don't want you introducing the culture of violence to my sons, And then he responded that, hey, you let your children watch, the series of Lord of the Rings, which, whatever, it's just some movie, which I'm not so familiar with. But apparently there's a lot of violence in there. So, in other words, and then she just didn't respond. So the point is, she just cut him off, just over some slight apparent offense on his part. So what I'm saying is that this is called hard-hearted, that somebody is thinking a particular way you don't like, somebody is acting a particular way you don't like, and you just completely cut them off, like they're a piece of trash or something. And you may think they're a piece of trash. So, whereas, a soft-hearted person, they won't do that. They'll think, okay, well, you hold those ideas, I hold these ideas. And especially if they're family members. I mean, that's the point I'm bringing up, that these relationships, family members, friends, the relationships in this world are so, you could say, what's the word? Sensitive, temporary. It's depending on so many things. The fleeting relationships. So this is what happens when we become hard-hearted, that we have a slight difference of opinions and we hate the person. This is called hard-hearted. So as Vaishnavas, definitely we're, even amongst the Vaishnavas, even amongst members of ISKCON, there's going to be so many opinions. They have a saying, right? As many no's as there are, that is how many opinions, In other words, everybody has a nose, everybody also has an opinion. So, so the idea is that just as Daksha was very hard-hearted, and he could tolerate, he couldn't tolerate, offenses towards apparent offenses towards himself, but he could tolerate his daughter's death. Prabhupada makes that point that a hard-hearted person could even tolerate their child's death, right? So we shouldn't be like that. That a slight provocation, and then we're able to cut people off, and right. So this is important. So these. But the thing is, Daksha, I mean, he wasn't a bad guy. Like, Daksha's not a demon, right? Daksha was ordained or ordered by Lord Brahma, right, to create progeny. So he's a very important person, you could say, in the development of the universe. But he just lost it, just like Indra, right? He sometimes loses it, tries to kill all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, stupid stuff, foolish stuff. So similarly, we have within ourselves also conflicting desires, conflicting interests, right, and conflicting emotions, and that they get in the way of our Krishna consciousness, and also in the way of our relationships with other Vaishnavas and Krishna. So the point is that we shouldn't let ourselves degrade into, like I just mentioned about this whole incident with a fellow sister and himself. I mean, I could just imagine if my sisters did that to me. I mean, if they said, "Hey, you're Hare Krishna, and you hold certain ideals, and therefore I don't want you associated with my sons, my nephews." I mean, can you imagine how, because naturally you have some affection towards, well, hopefully you have affection towards people just outside your biological family, but naturally you have some connection, some affection towards the biological family. And Prabhupada said that's natural. Just like people, they criticize Arjuna, right? They say, oh, Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita, and then when his sons died, he was lamenting. And Prabhupada said, oh, that's natural, you have that affection. So, so I could imagine if my sisters would tell me, oh yeah, you're cut off, practically speaking. I mean, that's pretty hard-hearted, right? So that's what happened with this devotee. So, but the thing is, within our lives, that is not an impossibility. People cut people off all the time. I'm not talking about when they're driving on the road. I'm talking about, cut them out of their lives, their relationship. So we have to be careful that we don't let ourselves degrade into such, a deplorable state that we become so hard-hearted that we just don't see. We're not able to forgive and forget and move on. That's a very horrible state to be in. So in relation to us, Daksha, he's having conflicting desires and interests, and again, he's not a demon. So when I was flying to North Carolina, I was on the plane, and then I looked over, and there was this older woman, sitting somewhat next to me, and she was reading this book, Purpose-Driven Life. So this is a very famous book amongst the Christians. This guy, Rick Warren, he wrote it, priest. So I saw her reading it, and I said, oh, well, that's very good thing to do, right? Good book to read, pious. So then she was reading it for some time, and then and all of a sudden she pulled out this, she pulled out a few scratchers. The scratchers, you buy them at all the liquor stores. So it's a little piece of paper, whatever, card, and you scratch. It's gambling. So you scratch it. They call it scratchers because you scratch it with your finger or a coin or something. And then if the cherries line up or whatever it is, then you win $10 or something like that. So I was thinking, okay, this lady's reading Purpose-Driven Life, and then she's pulling out the scratchers, right, the gambling cards. So I was saying these is conflicting desires, because gambling by nature is not much room for it in spiritual life. Or, for example, I was at the retreat with Bhakti Swami, and I never saw this before. I was actually quite shocked. But it was like during break time, you could say. I was chanting some rounds, and I was sitting on a bench. And then here's the center, and then there's a hotel just like 2 minutes away. And then outside the hotel, I see this devotee. And he's wearing a dhoti, and he's wearing a kurta, and he's wearing tilak, right? He's wearing neck beads. And then I'm sitting there, I'm chanting rounds, and then like he doesn't notice really anybody's around, but the thing is, it's right in the open. Like any devotee could. It was like their pathway to the hotel. So he was pretty much in the pathway to the entrance of the hotel. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I look over and I see the devotee like puffing on a cigarette, and he's like. It was like in public, I was like, what the heck's going on here? And I see some smoke billow out of his body, like smoke. And then I'm kind of like okay, this is kind of interesting. And he's standing there for a few more minutes. It might have been one of those vaporizers or something. So then I'm sitting there for a few more minutes. And then I see him do it like 2 or 3 more times. I was like, wow, this is pretty wild, And he's not like looking around if anyone's looking or something. And then he looks at me, or looks in my direction, and then he sees me. I'm dressed like this. I don't know, maybe he thought I was one of the swamis or God knows what, but and then, and then he just puts the vaporizer, puts it in his pocket really quick. So I was, that was the first, right? Because usually, devotees want to smoke out or whatever, do some other. Then usually they do that stuff, where not in public. So, but the point is, we cannot say that there's not sincerity in these people. That's not the point why I'm bringing this up. That they're insincere. I'm sure that purpose-driven lady, who was scratching her scratchers, right, trying to win a few bucks. I'm sure she had some sincerity within her. And I also talked with this devotee before and after his, puffing on whatever he was puffing on. I spoke with him. He's a very sincere person, like super sincere, very friendly, very sincere. New, he's a bhakta, but good thing he wasn't initiated. But he was a bhakta and very sincere person, right? Very, what's it called? When you dealt with him, you felt very pleased, So it's not that there is not sincerity. So similarly within Daksha, it's not that he wasn't a good guy, trying to do his best, but he fell down. So similarly within our sojourn back to the spiritual world, we're also dealing with conflicting emotions and desires and interests. Or like one time, another example, we were meeting. We called a lot of the congregation to meet, to come up with different ideas of how to spread Krishna consciousness, how to take care of the temple, stuff like that. So there was probably like 50 of us, right? And then somehow or other there was this the topic came up. What's your favorite music, or like what's your favorite bhajans or something like that. So then everybody was kind of telling what they liked, and then this one Mataji, this one woman, she raised her hand and she named like a rap artist that was popular when I was a young kid, and he's still popular. He's one of those guys who, and I don't want to say his name because I don't want to unnecessarily pollute anybody's consciousness, but she just said it right in public. Yeah, he's my favorite guy. With a whole bunch of Vaishnavas there. Everyone was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. Honest, but interesting. And the guy's a complete nonsense. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but I'm not sorry to say, actually. He's a complete nonsense. He just raps about money and sex, pretty much. And what is it? Money, sex, and marijuana. That's what he raps about. It's complete. Anyways. So, but within her, it's not that she wasn't sincere. There's a lot of sincerity there, actually. Okay. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So similarly within us, we all have that. It may not be scratchers, right? We may not be, up in the ashram scratching the, gambling cards, or we may not be, taking our japa walk and listening to some rap artist or whatever it is. Or we may not be at a retreat and puffing on something. But we all have our lingering attachments and our conflicting desires. Unless we're, super advanced or something. So, what do? So what we do is that whatever sincerity we have to fan that. Because if we don't fan that sincerity, we'll fall down again and again and again, and eventually we'll just be hard-hearted. Brahma bandhus, like friends of the Brahmins. We're not going to be Brahmins, we're going to be friends of the Brahmins. And we're not going to be devotees, right? Practicing devotees. We'll be friends of the practicing devotees, right? So, hopefully. I mean, that's actually not such a bad state, but we could even be worse. So, yes, we just have to be careful that whatever sincerity we have, we fan, and then eventually our heart will become very soft, and if we don't fan this, then the opposite will happen. So, so that's the idea. So does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Santosh. I think you have to wait for the mic.
Anyways, I was thinking, I lost my train of thought.
Okay. That mic weren't fast enough with the mic. No, that's right. So does anyone have any other questions or comments? What about you? You have something to say? No? You don't have to, that's all right. Everybody. So last thing then I'll say is, there's just a few minutes, I just wanted to, says persons who are too sexually inclined and materialists become so hard-hearted because of a slight loss of prestige that they can tolerate even the death of their children. So the idea is that material life, there's a little saying, it says, Prabhupada says, there's a sentence in a letter, it says, material life means hatred towards Krishna and attachment to matter. So, most people are attached to matter. That means there's some hatred to Krishna there too. And hatred just means strong dislike. So we have to learn how to like Krishna. His name, his form, his pastimes. We have to learn how to like those. And then eventually love those, right? And become more and more detached from matter. But people who are attached to matter, and specifically people who are too sexually inclined, because it goes together, materialistic, sexually inclined, they become hard-hearted because of a slight loss of prestige. So, in other words, the only thing that matters to them, practically speaking, is their sense gratification, their senses being gratified, and that also includes their prestige, them not being insulted and so on. In others become completely self-centered. So this is what happens. Materialistic people, sexually inclined people, it goes together. They become, their prestige is of the utmost importance. Their senses are of the utmost importance. And therefore, they're able to tolerate even the death of their children as long as their prestige isn't lost. As long as they're satisfied. So this is what they call in the English language demoniac. And people would even say that the death of their children, people would even say about abortion, that as long as their senses are gratified, it doesn't matter if you kill the child. Just kill the child. It's a nuisance. Changing diapers, taking to the dentist, sending to school, complete nuisance. But sex is not a nuisance. So we'll invite that, but the outcome of sex, not interested. But killing, millions of children, okay, that's okay. And people say, oh, well, you're not killing, it's not living. Well, give it some time and, turn into a full-blown human being, just like you rascal. It'll turn exactly just like you. In other words, a full-blown human being. So, therefore, Prabhupada would criticize that. And they become so hard-hearted, too sexually inclined, become hard-hearted, and they'll just kill. Even, sometimes they make the choice too that, let me find out, is it a girl or is it a boy, right? Oh, it's a girl, or whatever they like, because it's all about them and what they like, right? So if it's a girl, okay, great, I want a girl. If it's a boy, kill it. Or if it's a boy, okay, great. If it's a girl, then kill it. They actually think like this, because it's all about them and their own little sense gratification. So we could see it, and people have arguments. Oh, what about the rape victims, and what about? They probably wouldn't have been raped if they weren't, excuse me, but if they weren't, out at 1 a.m. in the morning in a miniskirt, they probably wouldn't have been raped. That's another point. But aside from that, they bring up all the rape victims. But so much of abortion is not rape victims. It's just, people don't want to deal with children, So brahmacharis, sometimes they don't want to deal with children too, so they just stay brahmachari. This is a more healthy way. So, anyways, the state of affairs in this world is very difficult, very challenging, and as we know, it will just get worse. But there is one great good fortune that by simply engaging in the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, we become liberated, go back to Godhead, and we could bring some people with us. So this is the idea to do that. So, all right. Yes.
Actually, in theory, doing those thousands of millions all over the world, ISKCON and Japa and other bhakti meditations for the past 50 years and stuff like that outside of India, theoretically that should massively purify the world. Now, if it massively purifies the world, we can see some empirical data that the world can be massively purified, but the statistics academically increase in time and going down all over the world. In fact, qualified states are very expensive to go and vote in. So actually things should start getting better, and these criteria could actually be getting better.
Yeah.
And we can directly relate that theoretically to the power of possibility.
Yeah, it's almost like two like two things are going on at once, that it's getting worse, but there's also for those who take to Krishna consciousness, and in many ways also it's getting better, just practically. Like so many people become vegetarians. That's a good thing, that's a lot of karma to kill cows and eat.
People that have been promoting all kinds of extensions of life for many, many years, they're being wiped out.
That's good. All right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.